joining us on this month's review episode. We are talking about the movie Shang-Chi, which of course we are all excited about to varying degrees. Shang-Chi and the Legend, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, the Simu Liu vehicle. This movie is the first of all of Phase 4 to actually, movie-wise, to drive the story forward. Of course, Phase 4 started with Black Widow, which was a flashback. So Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings has a unique responsibility of kind of reintroducing us to the mainline Marvel Cinematic Universe as it is now. So we are going to review the movie, and there are going to be full spoilers here once we get out of the quick spoiler-free section that we'll do up front. But before we do get into that, I want to let you guys know how you can support the show. You can follow us, leave us a rating and a review wherever you're listening. If that happens to be YouTube, like the video, share it with your friends, subscribe for free. All of that is free, and it helps us out a lot more than it costs you to do. Listen to our main show, The Comics Pals, where we talk about the characters that you love and all the places you can find them. If you're a fan of Marvel Comics, if you're a fan of Marvel's characters, listen to that show where we're talking about the news that involves them and all the cool stuff that they're involved in. So let's start this off the way we always do. We're going to go based on Rotten Tomatoes, the tomato meter, and the audience score, and simply guess what each score is. Whoever is the closest without going over is the winner of the game. Today, I am joined by Phil and Kale, and you guys are going to have the responsibility to guess the tomato meter and audience score. So what do you think?
Kale, you're always very good at this, so I think you should kick it off.
I am notably never any good at this except for the last time.
Oh, whatever.
I'm gonna say 85 critics. I'm gonna say 92 audience.
Phil?
I'm going to say 88 for critics, and I'm going to say 95 for audience.
All right. Well, I believe that would mean that Phil wins.
Hell yeah. I never win this.
Because the tomato meter was a 92 and the audience score was a 98.
It's pretty close on both.
Wow.
Yeah. That's amazing. Shang-Chi is doing tremendously well by both those metrics. That has to be one of the better performing superhero movies of all time.
I think you're right.
Surely.
Yeah. That metric, at least. That bit, by the way, is based on 232 reviews from reviewers and then 2,500 plus verified ratings. So those are people who, have seen the movie, that are giving it, very high praise. But the praise of others is not what matters here. It's whether or not we like the movie. So let's kick off our review for Shang-Chi with our spoiler-free comments. Just the quick hits, the things you want someone to know if they're wondering if they should go check it out.
Okay, Kale.
Okay. I think with this film, I think it goes without saying the action is incredible. I mean, you can see that much from the trailers. The action, the effects and everything are really cool. I think that, and I know we'll talk about this, but the way the 10 rings are actually used, I think is dope as hell. But I just couldn't get into this. I had a lot of trouble just enjoying myself. To be honest, to me, it felt like one long car commercial mixed in with a kids movie. It felt like a giant mishmash of things I've seen before.
So this was the first movie that I have seen in movie theaters since January 2020, I believe. I think the last thing I saw was Parasite. So it's been a long time.
Man, last thing I saw was Birds of Prey.
So it had been a minute. What I will say about this movie is I think it is one of the best solo Marvel movies ever.
Man,
I thought it.
I knew this review was going to go this way. It happened with Doctor Strange.
I thought this was spectacular for a Marvel movie. I thought Simu Liu was extremely charismatic. I thought Aquafina was awesome. I thought Menger Zhang was very good. And Tony Leung was phenomenal as the antagonist. Thought the action was spectacular. I thought the plot was just cohesive and it felt like a movie. Like it felt like an actual movie. Like things happened and they paid off in ways that doesn't always happen in Marvel movies in a really satisfying way. As far as like a solo Marvel film, I think this ranks right up there with Black Panther and like Winter Soldier. I think this was a fantastic movie.
So I'm gonna say that I think the performances were really strong by and large. I really agree with what you said about the actors. Like I didn't know much about Tony Leung before this, but boy oh boy, his Wenwu was just tremendous. And I think that they put a lot of the movie on his back. I think a lot of the promotion he was featured in, especially elsewhere. And even within the movie, a lot of the especially earlier parts of it are, feature him quite a bit earlier and then later on. So he did a great job. Simu Liu, I've never seen before act anywhere, and I think he also did a great job. And then Aquafina, I don't necessarily have a high opinion of, but I think she did a great job here. So the performances all around were great, but I did not like this movie very much.
Ooh.
Yeah.
This is unusual for me to be the one coming into the Marvel movie being like, wow, this was really good. And
I know.
everyone else being like, I don't know.
I'll say I liked it more than I thought I would, but similar to Kale, I had a hard time feeling invested, especially when when it gets into the second act, I really found myself struggling to stay in the pocket. Whereas the first act, I really connected more with the characters that Simu and Aquafina play, and I felt like, okay, I really like this dynamic, this duo. They're cool, they're cute, and I want to see what they go through. But as things developed, I just struggled, and then the third act for me, this movie went off the rails. So yeah,
there are issues with the third act. I 1000% agree.
Yeah, but the action was amazing. And if you are an action enthusiast, I think you have to see this. There are plenty of nods and winks to action movies of old, and I think that you will find something here for you if you enjoy, a movie that's about martial arts or a movie that includes a lot of martial arts. I think we're good on the spoiler-free stuff. If you want to hear our thoughts about the movie in full, just keep on listening. And if you want to see it first, hit that pause button, go check it out, and come back to us. So let's kick it off. We start actually with pretty much the origin of Wenmu. And we see that he's like would you say like a Genghis Khan type of person?
Yeah. He's been alive for 1,000 years. He's like a warlord that's conquering the world. The one thing that didn't entirely add up is like how he's been ruling the world through the 20th century. Like that's not entirely clear because like, he's not like a global dictator. I guess it's behind the scenes, but I felt like that was a little muddled and lost in translation, but we get the point. He's a very powerful figure through a millennia.
Yeah. And we see his origin. We get an understanding of like how he has accomplished this, and it's through these 10 rings that he has acquired. We don't even really know how, but he has them. And I kind of like how they didn't explain that. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
We didn't need all that extra detail. I think it goes to show how ready audiences are to accept wackiness without much explanation. Like, okay, he's got these rings. Like, we just saw a dude snap the half the planet's population in half. Sure, why not?
Whereas if this was Thor in 2011, they go way out of their way to explain what these things are, where they came
Right.
from, or whatever. But it's part of the mystery of what's happening next.
Exactly. And then they show how he softened and how he, meets this woman and he, falls in love with her. I really like that scene, by the way, their dance fight thing, whatever that was. That was kind of really like beautiful. And we've not seen anything like that in a Marvel movie.
He's such an interesting character. First of all, just the performance. There was so much charisma and gravitas behind him. Like this, there's a scene later in the movie in the third act when he shows up in the place that they have to go to, where he talks to like an elder, where it's like, "Watch your tone, like I'm your
Young
elder."
man.
Yeah,
And he
Yeah.
says he very specifically says young man, and it threw me for a second.
and
Yeah.
and just there was so much poise and dignity to his performance for someone that is effectively just like a mass murderer. He's murdered probably thousands of people over, like millions of people over thousands of years, and so they do a great job of kind of juxtaposing this gentleness that he forms when he meets his wife in this incredibly well choreographed fight versus like the monster that he was and the monster he becomes again through his grief.
Right. Yeah. I thought that was all brilliant and well done. And I agree with you. Like, I had several problems with the idea that Wenmu is this, global mastermind dictator who is anonymous. No one knows him. He's not on anyone's radar. That's not realistic. And obviously, I accept he's got 10 rings of power, but I can't accept that part. Just because, we all live in the world and we know what it would be like if there was a guy like that.
Yeah, even in history, because like you feel like we know who Genghis Khan is, right?
Right.
Like you would think this guy would be taught in textbooks for what he did, and even in ancient history. Even if like the narrative is that like he went behind the scenes and became like kind of like some kind of like mob boss type guy over time because of whatever reason, you would think that he was known in history books. And he does make the point at a family dinner where he talks about how he's gone by many names over the years. So it's possible that just many different people have been attributed to his actions, because how could a person possibly live 1,000 years in the real world unless they were known by many different aliases? But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, and also, why did he decide not to rule the world?
Exactly.
Why just rule whatever the hell he rules?
Yeah, he met his wife in 1996, and we see like all these things of him like orchestrating assassinations and bombings and stuff. What was he planning on doing in the last 100 years? Or he's been alive for 1,000 years. What was he doing in the 1700s? Why didn't he take over the world then, or whatever? I don't know.
Yeah.
All this is just kind of glossed over.
Right, and that was frustrating for me. But it was easier to swallow that pill because of his performance and who his character was. There was this softness that we got to see that was just almost weird to be juxtaposed with the murder we just saw him committing.
Yeah. That's one compliment I really want to levy at this movie too, is the way it weaved in backstory. It's not a traditional origin story movie where things happen chronologically of like, I mean, there is that, but like all the backstory stuff when Shang-Chi was a kid, it's all fed in when it fits the narrative and the plot of the film. So like we're almost 3/4 of the way through the movie when we see Shang-Chi's mother murdered. And when it does happen that way, it's a really compelling and powerful scene, mostly because of the performances.
Absolutely. And at that point, we kind of know or figure that she didn't have a good ending. But to see it happen and to see, that Shang-Chi saw it happen, it's just that's one thing I will absolutely give this movie. This movie understands its characters, their emotions, and how to get us to feel for them. And I think it succeeds at that almost every time that it tries.
I'm going to push back on that a little.
Please do.
I think in the one place it doesn't work for me was when Shang-Chi's having his long dark night of the soul. He's sitting in front of the river and he's trying to confront the fact that he did kill the person Wenmu sent him to kill.
Mm.
And that just didn't work for me. It didn't. I don't know. There was something about the character up to that point that didn't feel like he was carrying a weight like that.
I disagree, and I respect that you felt that way. But my pushback on that would be that, we're introduced to this character and he's parking cars, and a big theme for both him and Awkwafina's character Katie is that they're not living up to their quote unquote potential, right? And a big part of the climax when Shang-Chi's fighting his dad is he tells his son that he's been running away and hiding his entire life. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that he hasn't confronted the fact that he did kill someone, and not just anyone. He killed the person that is directly responsible for his mother's murder. And that's a big part of this movie as an overall theme is kind of like a legacy. His father trained him to get revenge for his mother's murder, and that wasn't satisfying for Shang-Chi. So a big part of Shang-Chi's character arc here was becoming his own person, because when he's training with his aunt says to him, your mother knew who she was, but do you know who you are? And so it's all about coming into his own identity. And that's the other big theme of this movie is just grappling with your ancestors and with the person you are, because Shang-Chi's got to own both his father's history and his mother's history, and they're both complicated and complex.
Yeah, sure. And it beats you over the head with that. But in this moment, I just didn't, maybe it was the performance, maybe it was the way that, that story was carried out through the flashbacks. I like what it did, or what it was trying to do. What you described is, it fed us bits of what happened, in the flashbacks as they were told. But this one just didn't feel right to me.
Well, even then, when he goes to fight his father, he has a chance to launch a fucking Kamehameha blast at him to wipe him out, and he chooses not to. Even when he says, "I'm going to kill my father" with conviction, he still can't do it.
Sure.
You know what? I don't know that I disagree with you, Kale. I think at that point, they had been building the emotional, building so much. It was so high already that I was just like, okay, I don't know if I needed that one too.
Maybe that's what it was. Yeah. It didn't feel like that added anything.
Yeah. I actually kind of thought that maybe he had done that, but I almost would have preferred it if that was left up to us to figure out for ourselves. But I don't know. Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, that's one of those where like I'm not going to criticize it for it, but I see why you want to, or why you feel how you feel. But yeah, so Phil mentioned how Shang-Chi is living in America, more specifically San Francisco. He's got this friend, Awkwafina plays Katie.
Yeah.
And we see their dynamic. They're really fun. I loved the scene, the opening sequence where the guy is coming out of that hot car and he steps out and he looks like $1 million. And you think that that's Wenwu's son. And it's not. That was good. That was a good gimmick. Yeah.
It was a good fake out.
Yeah. And
just quickly, a bullshit nitpick with Disney and trailers. They gave it away. Like,
I don't remember the trailers for this. I really try not to watch trailers, but fair enough.
Like in the trailer, they put that line, "You're 26 years old and you're parking cars. When are you gonna grow up?" And then it shows him, in the valet suit, and it's just like, can we not have anything in the film? Is there nothing left for us?
Well, they even spoiled in the trailers Shang-Chi actually using the 10 rings, like getting them.
Yeah.
Although
And
they
that's on the
changed
poster.
it. Yeah. Yeah. Uh, I noticed that there are scenes that were in the trailers that were not actually in the movie.
Interesting.
Yeah, there's one where Shang-Chi has the 10
rings?
rings on, and he says something to the effect of, "Is this what you wanted?" And I don't believe that was in the movie, but it's in one of the trailers.
Interesting.
Yeah.
This is why I really try to avoid trailers and posters, and even
Yeah,
when
same.
I have to watch them for the show or whatever, I don't really retain them.
Sure, fair enough. But yeah, that opening scene that we get that introduces Shang-Chi to us, everything that follows that up until the end of the first act, I thought was awesome. Seeing him and Katie interact and their friendship, them going out to dinner with their other friends and kind of getting like told off, like, oh, you guys are losers, and them going to the karaoke to sing and pass out, like that was fun. And I had a blast. And I thought the bus, that all that took us to the bus scene, which that was one of the best fight scenes we've seen in a Marvel movie.
Yeah,
that was
that
incredible.
first act, phenomenal character establishing, but that bus scene was it's fantastic. You know, we talked about in the main show, there were some complaints about the choreography or whatever, and there are plenty of like movies with bad martial arts choreography. Iron Fist comes to mind because obviously Finn, what's his name, isn't a martial artist.
Finn Jones. Somebody brought that up to me in the Discord, and I haven't been able to stop thinking about Iron Fist. I'm furious about it.
And we're going to be talking about Iron Fist,
but
here a little later.
This bus scene was fantastic.
Yeah,
I can't stress that enough. It was I don't know. I went where the movie wanted me to go because I didn't know, if Shang-Chi could fight or whatever. But when it just comes out, I was like, oh shit, okay, he can go.
Yeah.
It was good shit. Also, he had awesome jackets.
Yeah. You're not wrong.
He did.
The wardrobe department killed it.
Yeah, they killed it.
The Legend of the 10 Jackets.
I really, really enjoyed that whole sequence, seeing Shang-Chi jump into not just fighting for his own life, but for the life of others. I really liked.
Yeah.
And I also, so during that scene, there's a part where Shang-Chi jumps into the driver's seat of the bus because the bus driver gets knocked out. And he starts driving the bus, and I'm like, come on, no, Awkwafina should drive the bus. And then she drives the bus. I was like, yes, okay, cool.
And the way she stops it was cool too. Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, like this scene I had problems with because it was so insane how the bus driver felt like a WWE referee. Like somehow he got knocked out. I don't even really know how. And then he had his headphones on while he was driving the bus, which I don't know if that's a thing. I've never seen that in my entire life, but maybe it's a thing.
You got to take the bus, my man. Everybody's wearing headphones, especially the drivers.
Well, okay.
Yeah, I like this scene a lot. This is like really what hooked it in. The choreography was terrific. And what I wanted from this movie was a good martial arts film. And that's what this scene delivered. It set the tone of like, okay, I know what I'm in for.
Yeah.
And it really established Shang-Chi's character, because later when we're juxtaposing him with his father, we really see that he wants to save people, to the point where when he goes to Macau, his sister says, "Has America made you soft?"
Yeah.
It's really good. I also even appreciated the dumb Twitch stream guy.
Yo, that had my theater in stitches.
It was very funny.
Super funny.
Yeah.
That was a really, really good there's a specific person that's in my life that came to mind when I saw that scene. I was like, I know someone who would do that.
Yeah, sure. So that was good comic relief for that moment.
Yeah. You brought up Shang-Chi's sister, Xia Ling, and I wanted to talk about her as well, and this is a perfect opportunity to do that. We get introduced to her at this essentially what is a fight club.
Yeah.
And that, obviously that's a fun scene as well. Now Shang-Chi is known as the bus boy,
Very
which is really funny. And I'm sure that there was that's a cultural kind of thing as well. I got that impression.
It definitely harkened back to the Spider-Man 1 wrestling scene.
Yes, absolutely. The totality of that scene felt a lot like that. Yeah. We got Abomination and Wong.
That was random.
That was super random. To Kale's point, why couldn't that have been a surprise?
Yeah, that was in the trailers.
I don't remember that.
The trailers did not need that.
Yep.
You don't have to spoil that in the trailer. But I was super pleased with this because Abomination actually looks like his comic book counterpart now, and that was awesome.
Yeah, it raised the question to me of where the fuck is Abomination been then? This is like a player.
So he's actually going to be in She-Hulk, so we'll find out.
This was this was something I super didn't care about. I'm never too crazy about when it really crosses over big time with other Marvel stuff, because it always feels like a distraction to something I want to be kind of insulated.
Didn't need it. I thought it was fun, but you could cut that scene, and I don't think the movie's worse.
It's a little distracting for me, but that's okay.
But Shang-Chi does step in the ring, and he ends up fighting with his own sister, who is an absolute beast.
Yeah, there she is.
Xialing puts the boots on him in a pretty cool sequence, and I think the movie does a good job again of establishing the emotion of these characters, and they feel real, her feelings of abandonment and how that has hardened her, especially being alone with her father and having to deal with the way he treated her because of the fact that she looks like her mother. That was all really great and all felt authentic. And so when she's fighting him and she's really trying to kick his ass, you understand why she's making this decision, why she doesn't want him there.
Yeah, absolutely. The movie does a really good job of establishing its characters, its motives, and it's all through these flashback scenes. We see her training by herself at the temple because their father won't let women train like that or whatever, or with the men, and he puts all his vicarious faith in his son.
Right.
A man that's been alive for 1,000 years, he makes it seem like one day my son will wear these and I will grow old.
Yeah, that's definitely the impression we're meant to get.
Yeah.
And then we rocket into a whole new stage of the film when Wenwu's 10 Rings army hops into the fray, and they come for Shang-Chi and Xialing, and they fight on the what's that, like
support beams?
Scaffolding. Thank you. That was cool. At this point, I was like, okay, so we've had a lot of action scenes back to back. I guess it was good because then after this action scene, there's kind of a stretch where there's not one.
It slows down for a good half hour.
Yeah. And that was the part of the movie that I kind of struggled with. That's where my struggles began. Okay.
I loved all that stuff coming up, but the fight scene there was really good too. And, I didn't know what to expect, with I feel like it would have been very easy for their father to be like, I got to kill you guys now or whatever,
Yeah, real easy.
Yeah. It could have been he could have been extra villainous. I mean,
yeah.
You're not going to join me, then I'm going to kill you now, which is not what happens. He treats them like a father that has to discipline them. When they won't team up with them, he's like, all right, it's going to lock you up then, and I'm going to go do this myself. And when I get back, our family will be reunited.
Right. He also beats them up.
He sure does, but we've seen that throughout the movie too.
Yeah.
Tough love or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's a word for it.
Yeah, that's a word for it.
But when they first get together, it's actually kind of going well. And there's that sequence where they're having the dinner, and when Wu explains how the there was an organization that was fabricated named after the 10 rings, and he gives that whole explanation of essentially what we see in Iron Man 3.
Yeah.
And certain people, the people who are really aware, got a kick out of that in my theater, especially when Trevor Flattery or Slattery or whatever,
when Ben Kingsley shows up.
Yeah, when Ben Kingsley shows up, I felt like this was kind of extra.
Well, I was wondering how you would feel about this, because you famously really didn't like how they did the Mandarin thing in Iron Man 3.
Yeah.
Does this make up for it?
No, because I don't believe this was always the plan. And I think they made the Marvel short All Hail to the King to appease the audience of the part of the audience that was like me and felt disrespected by that. And now they are using that to leverage how they can, make it all connect. And this was 10 years in the making or whatever. And it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, I think of all the characters in this film, that's the one that can go right in the trash.
Ben Kingsley?
I did not care about him at all.
Yeah, he's just like a comic relief kind of presence here. I didn't really mind it. I wouldn't say I liked it or whatever. It ties together with the frustration I have with kind of forcing a broader Marvel universe into it. And it was shoehorned exposition too. Though I did like him talking about, all these guises he's had through history or whatever. I thought that was really cool. That was kind of character establishing. But at the end of the day, it was like a villain monologue almost. That part for me was just fine. I mean, Ben Kingsley is a great actor, so at the very least, he was good in what he did. But you can say what you will about what he had to do, whether or not that was good, but at least Ben Kingsley was good.
Yeah, that character has pretty much no heat for me as far as I don't really care about them. The one thing I will say is that one of the funniest moments in the movie for me was when that little creature is running around the battlefield and thinks that Trevor's dead. And then he's like, "Oh, relax. It's just a performance. Come here." And they both play dead together. I love that so much. I thought that was really funny.
One thing I'll say about Trevor in general is it actually didn't feel like he overstayed his welcome. Like he would, he was funny at first, and then he had a use, and then he just kind of shut up.
Yeah.
And then he kind of pops up again, and that's it.
Yeah.
Outside of that one joke, he's really not a factor in the,
which is for the best. It's not his story at all.
Yeah.
Right.
We just need his Karibo for 1 second.
Yeah, there was a way that becomes grating and annoying and untenable, and they were smart about it, I think.
Yeah.
So that kind of takes me into the next thing that I was a little bit puzzled by, which was so the idea is that they need to go to Talo. Mm-hmm. And Talo certainly feels like it's supposed to be Kunlun, right? They kind of allude to how there are other mystical planes, that there are other places just like Talo. So I guess that leaves the door open, but I kind of wish they would have just cut the middleman and gone where they wanted to go, where they clearly wanted to go, which is Kunlun. Because this Talo feels like that. These people have their dragons that they believe in and stuff, and they have powers and stuff. It just feels like, but so they need to go there. And you can only go one time during the year. That was what they said, right? Like the gates open once a year.
Yeah.
So when Shang-Chi goes with the crew, they go and then they're there for some time, and then Wenmu and his army come. So didn't the gate close?
I guess the idea is that Morris, the creature, knows how to do it without the gate being open. I guess the idea being that when when it fluctuates or whatever, it's all about the timing, and that was how Wenwu got in the first place, and that's why it was so dangerous.
I kind of wish This is something I wish the movie would have done more. I wish the journey to Talo would have been a longer sequence because the journey to the mystical city, that's a great story element, and you could have used this time to really do some of the character building you did, but in that context instead. And it would have felt like a fun kind of adventure sequence because it could have been like kind of Indiana Jones like, or the only good part of Rise of Skywalker, which is like when they're on a quest. So I don't know. That was just maybe one thing I would have liked to see more because they got to Talo pretty quickly.
I will say there may have been a hesitancy because that is Iron Fist's story. He's the one that goes to Kunlun and has this long journey with his parents who die on the journey.
Is Kunlun in the Iron Fist show? Because I already forgot.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they have a plane crash and then they have to go survive. His parents don't, and then he is taken in by the people of Kunlun.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that could have been why they didn't do more with that. I could see that. I felt like this overall movie invalidated Iron Fist. But
Good.
That's another story.
Did you say good?
Fuck right, I did.
Once they get to Talo, though, this is where I kind of started to like the movie started to drain me even further. I just didn't care. I just didn't care about the mystical creatures flying. You got dragons, all this extra stuff. I just didn't care about it. I get that it's supposed to be partially fantasy. Obviously, these people's powers come from something and somewhere, but it just felt like things just started to get too crazy.
I liked all the fantasy stuff. I like seeing the Shishi temple, like lion dogs. Those guys were cool.
They were fun.
Liked all that stuff just fine. My biggest gripe with the movie was the giant action scene where the dragon fights the extra dimensional dragon. It did not need that at all.
Went to the bathroom. I said, I know what's going on here.
In like Marvel movies always do stuff like this. It's
Yep.
super frustrating. It's the same issue I had with Black Panther when it was just like people riding rhinos and charging at each other. It just becomes too grandiose when like the story of our characters is what really matters here. It should have been just like a direct conflict with Shang-Chi and his father, because that's what the core of this movie was. How they handled that with him getting the rings was good enough. He was redeemed in his death, and what a cruel death it was, like the soul eaters or whatever. But man, I don't think this movie needed that.
Yeah, with the regard to the fantasy stuff, I think it was a lot at once.
Yes.
But I do think that it does a good enough job of putting you back in the emotions that propels the narrative forward more to the conflict with Wenmu. But yeah, it felt rushed. It was a lot at once and it felt fast.
I don't even dislike that there was a dragon. Like when he goes to the bottom of the water and he sees a dragon, I think that's actually fine. It's the fact that it turns into like this dragon on dragon fight. It's like, oh my god.
Well, when I saw the dragon in the trailer, I was already like, okay, here we go. But there was a theory that it was going to be Fing Fang Foom. And I was like, okay, it's definitely not going to be Fing Fang Foom. But if it is, at least that's a dragon of note. At least that's a creature who we can attach a name to. We know who it is. Okay, fine. And also, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I wondered if the good one was going to be is Shenlong the name of the Dragon Ball Z one?
It sure is.
Okay. Well, there's the Iron Fist gets his powers from a dragon on Kunlun.
Did you say Shenlong?
That's the Japanese
the
Dragon Ball name of Shenron. Shenron's the anglicized name.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Shenlong is also the name, if I remember correctly, of a fake character that was going to be in Street Fighter.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
that's
Shenlong
right.
is the name of Ryu's master
That's right.
that people said was unlockable in Street Fighter if you did like ridiculous things. That wasn't true.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have known that. So
Sorry to interrupt you.
my point was well, no. Hey, listen, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, you interrupted him first. So.
Yeah,
but turnabout's fair play.
I thought the good dragon was going to be the Iron Fist dragon. Was my original point.
Aha, got you.
Yes, I thought that too, because that's where he gets like the heart of the Iron Fist, right? It's from a dragon. Yeah.
Yeah, he hugs the dragon and gets a cool tattoo.
He hugs the dragon. Yeah, they always blow these things up too big, and I don't think it hurt my enjoyment of the film too much because I still very much enjoyed it, but it was excessive to say the least.
Yeah, once there was one dragon, I was like, okay, that's a dragon, and then there was another dragon, and I just wasn't even really into the idea that Wenwu was being like mind messed with to go there, and
I don't think they did that very well.
no,
it felt like they were playing both sides of it too close, you know. Oh, he's crazy, and they showed how he was crazy, and but also they showed how he was definitely hearing it, but they never showed where it was coming from, you know, to give us that inclination.
Right. And also, you know, he saw her dead, right? Like he knows for a fact that she died, right? So why would he even have a question?
Great point.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think you could have found another motive for him to have to go to Tao Lo. You know, maybe he wants revenge because, you know, he outlines his point well, where it's like they didn't let us live there. If they let us live there, we would still be a family.
Even
I think that's motive enough for him to go there.
Even still, I didn't think that what they set up was, you know, completely implausible. I just don't think they executed it very well.
I don't either, but I agree that I don't think the movie needed it. I think that forcing that into the movie was only done to create that final act. And I think you can get there simplified. You don't need dragons. You don't need any of that. Wenwu has come to conquer once again. He is returned to his conqueror ways, and his son is going to stop him. That's it. You know, and let it be that. You want to have the warriors, the 10-ring warriors fight against the Ta Lo warriors, do it up. But you don't need the crazy dragons. And the other key factor, so they clearly did that because they wanted a way for Wenwu to pass the torch of the 10 rings to Shang-Chi, for them to have that, their last moment be like a positive one. That's why they did it. But what they ended up doing as a result is taking all the heat out of the movie. I stopped caring. I couldn't care.
Our main character.
Yeah. They killed him off, and now we're fighting with a dragon we just got introduced to 5 minutes ago that doesn't even have a real name.
Yep. That's the whole thing.
That's crazy. I can't believe they made that choice.
Oh, I absolutely can't.
Yeah, that was a really misguided decision.
I don't know what they thought it was adding. And it's another CGI fest. Listen, these movies are superhero movies. There's gonna be CGI, but like you had a chance to not need to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
They had a chance to just let these two fight. And yes, there will be CGI, 10 rings. I get it, but it could be that personal conflict.
And
that fight was cool. The ring fight was dope as hell.
Yeah.
There's probably, and honestly, I'm just shooting off the cuff here. If you want him to have that positive moment with Shang-Chi where he turns the rings over, what if it's like his own army turns on him because he's like got last second like remorse or something, where like they connect over their mother and his wife or whatever, and like that's how he dies. And Shang-Chi gets the rings. He's got to like stop his father's army or something.
Yeah,
like something.
There's plenty of other ways that you can get where they felt they needed to go that don't involve dragons.
Yeah. This Cthulhu dragon, like, you know, he's like this soul eater that is going to destroy the universe or whatever. And they deal with him in like 10 minutes.
Well, they said, okay, so this was the thing that I thought was so funny. They say if that dragon eats the other dragon, the Great Protector, then the Soul Eater will be able to destroy the universe or whatever the verbiage was. But before that happens, the Soul Eater can die to Awkwafina's arrow. The Soul Eater can get hit in the throat by Awkwafina's arrow, and that turns the tide of the entire battle. You have got to be kidding me.
If that's the case, then why don't they all hit him with arrows?
Right. That would have been the move. Just arrow him.
Like everyone has an arm.
Arrow.
Yeah,
But
get
no one does
Hawkeye
it.
in there. He's ready to go.
Yeah. I just was flabbergasted by the decision making in the final act. They took a movie that was otherwise on a great trajectory, and to me, they just nosedived it. And I said at the beginning, I didn't like this movie that much. It's largely due to that. I felt nothing. I couldn't.
Yeah.
I couldn't. The only thing that I felt something for was when Shang-Chi is holding on to his sister, and Xialing says, you have to let me go. And he's like, I'm not going to leave you again. And that I really liked.
Yeah. I don't think this final act nosedived the film like you do. I still think it's in my top 3 favorite solo Marvel films, clearly. But boy, it could have been the best Marvel movie if it had a better climax.
Dude, it's probably in my top 3 solo Marvel films too, but that's not a high bar, because the solo, if you're talking about origin movies, they're pretty bad. You got what? Black Panther, Iron Man 1, and this.
First Avenger.
First of, mileage may vary. I don't like that movie very much, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. Closing scenes were fun. No? Sure.
I again, I enjoy the relationship between. Go ahead, Kill.
Well, I don't. I was gonna go into the end credits. I don't know if that's what you were referencing necessarily, but
no, I meant like the last scene of the movie before mid and closing credits.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I enjoy the relationship between Simu Liu and Awkwafina. Their chemistry on screen, I thought was aces, but I think the movie leaves them in a confusing space. Are they together or not? Like, if there are certain aspects that make it seem like that, she checks him out when he's shirtless at the fight club. She, puts her hand on his hand when they're at the dinner with their friends at the end. She rests
her head on his shoulder when he's moping.
Right, but Marvel movies are so sexless and sanitary that they can't even kiss, when I think that was the implication.
Yeah.
That sucked.
Mm-hmm. I thought about that too.
Yeah. And then they got to go with Wong.
They sang karaoke with him. That was fun.
That was really funny.
It's fine.
And that's the movie.
That's the movie.
So let's talk about the end credits. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to go there.
Yeah,
I saw an interview where Kevin Feige says the end credits for Shang-Chi are going to be are just like the original Avengers Initiative end credit scene. Yeah, they are, because that's what it is. It's the dude being recruited to the Avengers. Yeah.
I felt nothing for that, really. With Captain Marvel and Bruce Banner, it's whatever.
Same thing.
I'm a sucker for those kinds of things. I love them. I think they're phenomenal, but this one didn't really add much. It gives you the idea that the 10 Rings have an owner that is not, their origins are not on Earth, and this might be a problem. I'm down for that. If they're going to make Shang-Chi like relevant to the plot of the overall story going forward, sure, I absolutely want to see more of the character. But was this like a brilliant post-credit scene as far as post-credit scenes go? No.
Any idea?
Hyped for anything?
Yeah. Any idea on whose rings they may be?
No, I don't particularly care.
To be frank, I haven't really thought about it yet.
Yeah, maybe Fin Fang Foom. It'd be cool if he was an actual player. It won't happen, but it would be cool.
Yeah. And then the last scene, we see his sister taking over the 10 Rings organization.
Who gives a shit? Honestly, like, so okay, she took it over. Is she going to be her dad? Is she not going to be her dad? I don't know. That's fodder for another movie. But
Shang-Chi too.
right, but I don't care about that right now. And also, we just saw him fighting the 10 rings. So why would I want to see that again?
Great question.
Because
We'll
there are
have to see, I
girls
guess.
this time.
There were some guys in there, but they were mostly girls. You're right.
Girl ninjas. Yeah. Whoa.
All that means is that Shang-Chi is going to get his ass beat for the 2 hours of the movie.
Yep.
You might like it.
I doubt it. Not for that reason, but that part.
I'll tell you what this movie taught me, guys, is that a Dragon Ball movie could work.
Yo, there were.
Oh, man. Yeah.
I was thinking like he could play Goku. He wouldn't be a terrible Goku.
Yeah, he was legit.
Why not?
Yeah,
honestly, Aquafina could be Bulma too.
No, sorry.
No, I think so. Bulma's super brash in the beginning.
Yeah, but
that's not the problem.
Yeah. So there was a cool moment where he does like a Kamehameha, which was sick. That was I can't believe that happened in a Marvel movie. Like
that was nuts.
That's unreal, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that was cool. And once I saw that, I was like, okay, I can't hate this movie no matter what happens.
Yeah.
Must be nice. So I haven't enjoyed anything since 2008.
Final thoughts.
I really like this movie a lot. In light of the criticism I levied at the third act and some things in the first act, I think the overarching story was good. I think the characters were great and strong. And honestly, I'm just a sucker for a good martial arts movie. There's a scene where he's training with his aunt, and they're just like, I made me realize like I love training sequences a lot, especially in like martial arts movies. That was really cool too. I was just a real sucker for this movie. And I went into it knowing I was going to complain about stuff, but it's a Marvel movie, and a lot of them I have complaints about. So overall, I think this was like a solid, 8 out of 10.
I wanted to enjoy this, and I just couldn't get there. I feel like I know why now. After we've talked about it, but it just wasn't enough for me. And maybe because it was a Marvel movie, I don't know, but I would appreciate less of a car commercial.
You're gonna get that in a big budget movie.
But yeah, the performances were great. I'll show up for Michelle Yeoh. It doesn't matter what she's in. And the action was incredible. So I mean, it's it's a high end of the rating scale, 6.5.
The one other thing I wanted to point out, I talked about payoffs, like them being people that park cars for a living. Like there was a point to that. There was a purpose to that, other than it being fun. It made her like she was good at driving,
right?
And that really came in handy twice in the movie. So like
that was fun.
Things had like a lot of things that happened had reasons behind why they did it, and I really appreciated that from like a film structure standpoint.
I agree with all that. That's the thing about it. Like, I think there were so many smart things done with this movie. I think there were unique things done, unique to Marvel. And I think that, it's ambitious in a lot of ways, but I just feel like it's crushed under the weight of a third act that's just not propped up by anything. And a second act that I think is a little bit dreary at times. And I'm not against long periods of talking by any means, but I don't know. Some of that stuff was just hard to get through. But I think the movie has merit. I understand why people like it so much. I'm very glad that it was a success, regardless of what I think about the quality. It's cool that people showed up for this one in the way that they have. And that's awesome. I'm happy to have Shang-Chi as a member of the MCU. They've christened him an Avenger in a recent trailer. So he's an Avenger now. And that's all great. The acting was tremendous. The choreography was amazing. And it sucks that we won't see more Wenmu, presumably, maybe flashbacks down the line. But I think this movie has some problems that force it for me to be not what it could have been. So I'm gonna say I'm gonna say a 7, which is probably me being a little generous.
In between.
Yeah. So that's gonna do it for our review of Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. We definitely want to know what you thought about this one. So leave us a comment wherever you're listening. And while you're thinking about us, leave us a follow, a rating, and a review. And if that happens to be YouTube, subscribe for free, like the video, and share it with your friends. Make sure you listen to our main show, The Comics Pals, which drops every single Monday. We're talking about the characters you love and all the different places that you can find them. And we're doing news commentary about all the stuff that's happening with them. So you don't want to miss out on that. With that being said, we're the Comics Pals signing off. Until next time, take care, guys.
See you next movie.